On our book review for organizational theory. Key concept series, key concepts in organization theory. The content was easy is easy for IO professionals and students to select topics of interest for an overview of the subject matter. The book did provide an overview and formal definition of each of the key topics for understanding of the concept in organizational theory. The authors organized the subject matters in an order that builds on the levels of complexity of organizational theory. I felt like it started from the most um, less complex topics to topics that were more complex, increasingly as we went through the list. Each concept presented provided a concise definition, historical versus contemporary theories, citations of references and associated writings for deeper study and review, and then culminated. Each topic had a culminating section with the author's discussion of the concept presented. In reviewing, overall, they had 35 different concepts for organizational theories that was presented in the book. I chose to review four. My purpose for choosing these four um, is specifically revolves around my work that's coming up over the next quarter of um, interaction. I actually am currently working with a community college to develop a training and course for entrepreneurship, which will have students who are actually looking at starting their own business, whether it's for profit or nonprofit. And so I chose the topics and relating so it could help me frame for them on why these key foundational principles are crucial to them for them to consider as they're working on their business models and their business plans as well. So the concepts I reviewed was first was the life cycle. The life cycle in the book review was defined as life cycle models are defined as the models which address how and why organizations begin, grow, change, survive, or expire, and how these issues relate to organizational structure, design, and business strategy. I think it's important when we're talking about entrepreneurs as well as more mature companies that they accurately identify what stage of the life cycle that they're in, and that how which stage will affect how their structure may be changed, how to manage that change, as well as the culture, being mindful of the culture it creates. So, in the book, it provides the life cycle for both for profit and nonprofit organization, those stages as well. I like the fact that they talked about the historical concepts and the history and the theories behind those theories, but also it brought out to like the more contemporary views as we shift and change to a global environment. The discussion of the life cycle, it developed the understanding and the importance of the stages and correctly identifying what stage an organization is presently in so that it can manage all other aspects of its business model. The second concept that I reviewed was organizational structure and design, and it was defined as um, are characterized as the focus on the most efficient way to group tasks, resources, and people to achieve organizational goals and optimize the performance of the organization and meet the demands of a competitive environment, is how the authors define organizational structure. Um, One of the great things about it, it did provide the various structures for consideration in organizational design. It talked about many of our concepts that we in theories that we studied on organizational design. It did make reference to mechanistic as well as organizational structures. I mean, organic structures, and then also it talked about this section. It went into more of the classical theories of organizational structures and designs as well. This section developed the understanding of the elements of each structure for identification when working with an organization or and helpful advising an organization on an appropriate structure for its operations. And so this section is very helpful in for IO professionals who are working with organizations to recommend a structure or a series of structural designs that may fit the organization at its stage in its particular life cycle. One is, which I think is of great importance, and it is a foundational piece for any organization to consider, not after there's a problem, but being intentional about organizational culture. And the authors define organizational culture as the set of beliefs, values, assumptions, norms, stories, ceremonies, artifacts, and symbols within the organization that influence the way employees behave and perform their jobs. So this section and this concept in the book provides an overview of culture and what are the intangible and intangible aspects of the concept, which were real helpful. They go into a little bit more in depth than our readings that were selected, and also helping. It helps for the IO professional and student to understand the concept and its importance within the organizational structure, as well as why is organizational culture important. It may seem to be an intangible um, aspect of the organization that then presents itself in a tangible way, um, and how we can be intentional about creating a positive culture. In this section, I also talk about on my e-portfolio um, the importance that culture in itself is neither negative or positive. It doesn't take shape unless you direct it. And so it's important for organizations to understand what is culture, how to create a positive culture to achieve the goals. The purpose is we want um, employees to be productive and perform, and we know that the culture that we create within organizations um, builds upon that and aids in creating um, optimal performance in organizations. Lastly, the topic that I reviewed was organizational change, which I think is important as a foundation for new businesses as well as more mature, long-standing businesses because of the environment we live in, because of the global aspect of our world today, and because change is inevitable as we look at whether it's generational, whether it's political, um, regardless of what's going on in our external environment, it will affect our internal environment. So we have to be ready for change. And change in the book is defined as the process by which an organization moves from its present condition to a desired state, in particular, improving its use of resources in the struggle to continue to create value and survive. The book provides a basis for change and its necessity, while connecting it to the life cycle, structure, and culture of an organization. I rounded this topic out at the end, because it speaks to the other three topics that I reviewed and how to manage, um, when there needs to be a shift in structure, when there needs to be, when an organization is moving from one stage of their life cycle to another, and when there needs to be a shift in culture. The book develops the understanding of why managing intentional and unexpected change properly is important to organizational success and survival. Um, in the section, we talk about intentional change for growth or for to address environmental factors or trends that we are seeing in our environment, but also when there's an unexpected change as well. The book talks about affecting change and managing change for both intentional and unexpected. The book adds to the tools of the IPOL professional for further exploration rather, and um, it provides an overview with links to more in-depth study as needed, not only for professionals but for students who are learning about organizational theory. The book is really not designed for the non-professional. Even in the introduction, it clearly states its focus for students in the learning environment, those who are studying organizational theory. The book can aid IO professionals to better communicate with non professionals in framing the concepts and why they can be essential to the success of an organization. So, overall, when I review the book, yes, it helps my learning because this is my interest, this is my field, but it also helps me frame when I'm discussing with or sitting with an entrepreneur, sitting with an organization who may not even have a clue of what organizational theory is. I can succinctly describe it for them, using this resource and this tool, to give them a broad understanding of organizational theory. For example, if I'm discussing with a novice group who just know they want to do some work or they want to produce a product or start a company, to talk about, okay, these are the life cycles. This is where we have identified that your organization is, and this is what it looks like, and this what it happens. The goal is for the organization to process through this point or desired area, or desired stage in the life cycle. So it helps in framing the concept. So those who are novices or don't have a direct interest in organizational theory but are impacted by it, it will help me, as an IO practitioner, as an instructor as well, in doing facilitation and trainings, help me further explain, um, to students and to trainees of what organizational theory is. Lastly, I wanted to provide reviews of the book, from others, who are professionals in the field and their reviews. So most of the reviews were very complimentary, but it did, uh, um, identify that it was good for students and lecturers. Um, Most consistently, that's what the reviews led to a conclusion. Thank you for viewing my presentation, my references. I have more references in my e-portfolio, which is the link is also attached, which goes into my in-depth reviews of each of the concepts, as well as my thoughts on the concepts.